Well, welcome to the ORICL class, More Stories from the Secret City on June the 21st. We're glad to have all of you here. And I'll begin by covering just a little bit of information, and then we'll get right to this question that I have over here. Thank you so much for that question that had been asked to me while I'm getting these slides ready. The question is, what is the construction going on past the Oak Ridge Turnpike on the Oak Ridge Turnpike Old Guard Gate, about a mile west of the golf course? I pass it every day, and a lot of work going on. On the left, as you're going out of town, headed west, a new training facility is being built. And that is Y12 is the one that's doing that construction. Again, I remind you, ask questions. Please ask questions. And if I'm not watching the chat close enough, just speak up and tell me you've sent me something in the chat or asked your question directly. Keep muted unless you want to speak, and how to look at the various views that we have. And again, I'll skip over this today. I've been in Oak Ridge 50 years, been a great time here, and I'm the historian for the city of Oak Ridge. Tell you another story, and this one is about how the Oak Ridge Boys name came to be. This is a Oak Ridge Journal newspaper, and I realize it's a little fuzzy, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, Fowler at Grove. Wally Fowler and his Georgia clodhoppers with Lowell Blanchard will entertain for the Child Activities Program on Saturday, February the 24th. Now, this was 1944 at 9:40 a.m. Well, now that aggravates me because I got someone in the waiting room now. Okay. And at a quiz show, contest, and a variety screen program featuring the Black Arrow will also be presented. Now, this is a picture of me with the Oak Ridge Boys when they came through in 2005. This is us out at Y12. We took them on a tour of Y12, actually took them inside Beta 3, building that you can see in the background there, so they could actually see the Calutrons. They were delighted to get that secret tour, and often in their shows now, they will tell about the opportunity they had to come to their namesake town and tour the secret facility at Y12. And how that name came about, Wally Fowler and the Georgia Clodhoppers entertained in Oak Ridge during the Manhattan Project. They had a quartet that was named the Harmony Quartet. And after the war ended, they were going to Nashville to appear on the Grand Ole Opry. And as they were driving down the road and went by Oak Ridge, Wally said to them, you know, this Oak Ridge thing is big, and it's getting a lot of airplay now, a lot of people talking about Oak Ridge. Let's change the name of our Harmony Quartet to the Oak Ridge Quartet. And they did that as they were driving down the road going to the Grand Ole Opry. And that name stayed with them until late in the 60s. They changed it to the Oak Ridge Boys. And then, of course, the members of the group now are not any of Wally Fowler or his Georgia Clodhoppers, but they are proud to carry the name of the Oak Ridge Boys. We also named a a street for them. This is where they were performing at the Secret City Festival that year, and they're holding up the sign, the Oak Ridge Boys Way. That road is located in front of the library. Is that road that runs alongside the turnpike is called the Oak Ridge Boys Way. So there's your story about how the Oak Ridge Boys got their name. Now, this picture here is of the Oak Ridge swimming pool. Just saw in the paper that they're still fussing over money to buy chlorine for it. I think they need to get over that and keep the pool going. It's a historic landmark for the city of Oak Ridge. It's a great pool, one of the largest spring-fed pools. I believe I looked it up. I think it's number 4 in the nation, but I'm not sure. But it's one of the largest in the nation. This is what it looked like in the early 1930s, late 1930s, early 1940s. It was a pond. It was the Cross Pond, named for the people that owned the land. And in the 1945, it was converted into a outdoor swimming pool and saw a lot of activity during that time period. Have you seen the new murals that are coming up around town? This is the one that's on the Oak Ridge National Laboratory Federal Credit Union, ORICL Federal Credit Union building on Broadway, very near to Jackson Square. Just been completed, and I'm collaborating with Jim Dotson, who's been one of the key individuals bringing these murals to town, and also other art sculptures around town. He and I are working on a historically speaking column that should come out in the next next few weeks, and talking about these murals. And there are several cities that have taken advantage of these murals and have used them to good advantage for tourism. So one of them that I've noticed is feature some of historic characters, some people that were prominent in the history of that location. And I'm thinking that it would be good if we could convince some other companies to help support this and to pay for putting up some other murals like that. I'm thinking about, and this one is history. It shows the history and is based on some of Ed Westcott's photographs. But I'd like to see one that has portraits of people like Ed Westcott, Alvin Weinberg, General Groves, General Nichols, John Guggen, Jack Case, Clark Center, Clifford Shuell, Ernest Wallen, Eugene Wigner, others, people like that are prominent in our history could be featured in these murals around town. This is the one that's out at Melton Lake Park. It was the first one of these large ones. And of course, we've got 2 huge water tanks in Oak Ridge now, one on Scarborough Road and one on Emory Valley Road, that need to be painted. Maybe we can get murals on them as well. Our International Friendship Bell, I just learned within the last couple of weeks that This decision has been made to change the striker for that bale and to use cedar. Now, up until now, they've been using palm logs, and they usually bring them up from Florida. A soft wood's what you're looking for. And someone had the bright idea that Tennessee cedar is about the same hardness as palm. So they're going to try to use a Tennessee cedar log as the striker. You can see the palm log there is just about gone. And I think it's time to replace it. So they're gonna replace it with cedar. They're also making 3D printed small replica bales at the American Museum of Science and Energy. So you can get a replica of the bale. It's well done. Also, there's a garden there, and I can't say the right name of the garden. It's a Japanese garden that's raked, gravel that's raked, and there are several volunteers that keep that garden raked. And we did with Pat Postma did a video about the garden and the bale not too long ago that was used in showing the same kind of bales and gardens that are across the nation on Peace Day. So the American Museum of Science and Energy is open now. This is the first tour that I was able to bring back through there just a few days ago. And it's got some new exhibits there. Alan Lowe participated in one of the Hidden History podcasts that Keith McDaniel and I do. We do them every other week on Saturdays and then post them on YouTube. And he talked about all of the things that they had done during the time that they were shut down because of the pandemic. And now it's open, and the K-25 History Center is open as well. This is that same bus over at the Oak Ridge History Museum. I took them by there as well. So I think we're getting back on track with tourism in Oak Ridge after the pandemic. This is a gentleman that I took up to the Manhattan Project National Historical Park in the main lobby of the Children's Museum. And he wanted to get his passport book stamped. And you see she's putting that stamp on there now. So many people like to keep those stamps and keep those books and get them stamped. This is what the stamp looks like. And you have to go to all three sites to get all three segments of the stamp. Now, I've been to all three sites and I have the stamp, obviously. And that's what it looks like once you've gotten all three of them stamped. This is a tour that we took back earlier when the pandemic was still requiring us to wear masks. This is at the inside the Oak Ridge History Museum. And
hey,
this
Jason.
Yes. Pick up, Richard. I'm not Jason, but I'll be glad to hear what you want to say. You remember the Sunday Punch? This is the plane that was paid for by K-25 workers given their overtime pay. They're worked on Sundays and I think Saturdays too, but at any rate, they've paid for this airplane. It was left in China at the end of the war and disassembled over there. They did create a replica of it, but the original Sunday Punch never made it back. Now, I want to stop sharing just a moment. And let me see if there are any questions that you have before we move ahead. I'm hoping Steve is about ready to come on here. Let's see, I've got a message from him. Hold on just a second. Oh, it's not him. Steve, you're not on here, are you? All right. Don't see him. We'll continue on. Do you have any questions for me? You can see I'm just putting up some questions or some stories that I've thought you would be interested in. I'd be glad to talk about anything that you want me to, if you'll ask a question. What was this? Why was the Sunday Punch in China? I don't know. I really don't know how it got to China. I just read that it was left there. Now, how and why it was in China, I don't know. It could have been on a mission that didn't make it back. That's something I'll need to research. I'll promise to try and find that out by next Monday. Oh, I love it when you ask me questions I can't answer. That gives me a reason to go do research. Any other questions? All right, I'm going back to sharing the screen and we'll talk about some more stories. I'm hoping when Steve comes on here, he'll speak up. So this silo at Hall Ridge is located about 2 miles in on the hiking trails to Hall Ridge. And I'm convinced that it was built during the Manhattan Project, primarily to provide beef for the city of Oak Ridge. It was not there prior to the Manhattan Project. The Jones family that lived in that area, Steve Jones, is descended from those families, and he assures me that that was not there when they were asked to leave. And it's a large operation. There are still concrete foundations just alongside this large silo. So it was a large operation during the Manhattan Project. Now, I'm going to have to stop the share. I'm going to let you have a tour inside the highly enriched uranium materials facility. And I've got to bring this back. Let me see. I know how to do it this way, so I'm going to do it the way I know how to do it. And let's see, share the screen, share the sound, optimize for video. All right. Now, somebody let me know that you can hear the sound and see the video, please. Uh-oh. That didn't work, did it?
Hear it and see it. It's small.
But you can hear it and see it, right?
Yes.
And I'll try to get it as big as I can. I got to quit hitting that mouse. I'm going to try one more thing once it comes up again. Well, we're going to have to watch it small. I'm sorry, but I want you to see some of this interior of the highly enriched uranium materials facility. Well, that didn't help, did it? Let's try it one more time.
Hello, my name is Jason Hatfield. I'm the operations manager for the highly enriched uranium materials facility. This is a brand new facility at Y12, which was created for the safe, secure, and efficient storage of highly enriched uranium and special nuclear materials. We receive materials in this facility from all over the world as part of the Global Threat Reduction Initiative, as well as material from sister sites all over the country. Weapons are brought in from other sites for storage here. Many of these weapons are either disassembled or go through a quality evaluation process for future shipment back out into the stockpile. This facility is unique as it stores 12,000 drums of material and 12,000 cans of material. We are currently inside the HMF loading dock. This is where vehicles used for either over-the-road shipments of materials or on-site vehicles are unloaded and loaded for shipments. HMF was built as a modern nuclear storage facility. We were designed to the highest criteria within DOE without actually being a nuclear reactor. This facility was actually designed to a 50-year design life. That really doesn't sound like very much, but considering our existing facilities were only built to a 10-year design life, I realistically feel this facility will be here for the next 100 years. This crane is one example of a tool that we identified in the automotive industry, which would significantly help and improve the safety in our operations. In our existing facilities, we have people who bend over and actually remove items from a container and lift them up. Many of these items can be heavy. This crane, with a slight touch, can move down, up, or left or right. This has increased not only our safety, but it has also increased the efficiency of this operation. Weapons are returned to Y12 from the stockpile. Once those weapons come in, they are brought in disassembled, and the highly enriched uranium is extracted from those weapons. That uranium is then packaged into small, safe quantities, or it's downblended for many other purposes, such as use in commercial fuel reactors or for test reactors, such as are used for medical isotope generation. All those small quantities are placed into convenience cans, which are then stored in small containers and placed into storage containers for long-term storage in the facility. These storage containers have up to a 50-year design life here in this facility. The container you see before you is a rackable can storage box. This container was designed and developed for use in the highly enriched uranium materials facility. This container was developed in order to store a large quantity of nuclear material in the smallest, densest footprint possible. This allowed for reducing the size of the highly enriched uranium materials facility and thereby reducing the cost to the taxpayer. This container has a neutron poison inside the container, which actually allows for that safe, dense storage of nuclear material. One of the other opportunities that we took advantage of is to develop our procedures and store and use those procedures electronically. Now we have scales, we have barcode readers, and we have measuring devices which all collect data into one system, which is then input into our data collection system for long-term retention. HUMF was designed with flexible storage. We have open floor storage for the use of large containers and containers that do not easily fit into our racks. We also have rack storage. Our rack storage is designed for the densest storage of material possible. In this area, the racks were designed to the highest criteria within the Department of Energy to withstand any type of earthquake or other seismic event. All of these storage areas are flexible for future needs and future programs. Our floor storage can be adapted for racks in the future. Our racks can be reconfigured depending upon program need and depending upon what is needed in the country. Well, there you have it, a look of the highly enriched uranium materials facility from the inside. This facility has been called the Fort Knox of uranium. Our mission is to provide safe, secure, and efficient storage for highly enriched uranium. There's a lot of transformation and a lot of change that's going on at Y-12, and the HUMF facility is the first and cornerstone in that transformation process to provide the next 50 years worth of storage and operations for enriched uranium products. Thank you very much for your attendance.
So, I gotta stop that. Sorry, let me get rid of that.
When was the that video made, Ray?
It was made right after the building was constructed. So that's an old video. It was it's 5 years old, but it's more than that really. But it's still the same operation. I showed you a video last time, I believe, about the construction of the uranium processing facility that's going on right beside that highly enriched uranium materials facility. But I thought you'd want to see that to see how the materials actually stored inside that that building. And it is an old video, and it's available on YouTube. The rackable can storage. Let's see, RCSB, rackable can storage box. A really cool shiny box. That's what I used to call it. What's the massive construction that's going on near the intersection of Milton Lake Drive and Emory Valley Road before arriving at Hall Ridge? Actually, that is in between. I hope I know which one you're asking about. There's a electrical power station being built there on the west side of the river. You can see it as you're driving up to the intersection. I think that may be what you're asking about. Melton Lake and Emery Valley Road. That throws me, Emery Valley Road. I think you mean Melton Lake Drive and Edgemore Road.
Yes, yes, I do. You're right.
All right, and I hope I've answered your question. Thank you for that. The video was informative no matter its age. That was my feeling and why I shared it with you. But it was made, I think, maybe as early as, I want to say 2008, but I'd be wrong if I didn't, so wasn't careful. Okay. And I do apologize for the size. Steve says he's going to join us. Let's see, here's another one coming in. And I need to set a. Okay, that's it. Any other questions? Keep them coming. You're doing a really good job of asking questions. Minimum number of participants for a tour of the facilities. My sister belongs to the Knoxville Bridge Club, and some members are interested in touring Oak Ridge. Most of these tours, and the minimum number is one. I can take anyone on a tour, and normally I'll happily take families, couples. So contacting me will get you a tour of Oak Ridge regardless of the size of people who want the tour. Now, 65 passenger buses, same thing. I'll take them on any of them on a tour. We've even done tours that have more than one bus. We can figure that out as well. If you're wanting to take the DOE public bus tour, which we hope to get started back later this summer, maybe or early fall, then you need to sign up online, and it doesn't hurt to sign up at least a month in advance. Those tours fill up and they can only take about, I think, about 30 passengers on the bus. But as far as just general tours of Oak Ridge, many of them come through Explore Oak Ridge with Katie Watt. You can contact her, and also at the American Museum of Science and Energy, Glenda is the person to contact there, and they both will get a hold of me, and I'll do step-on tours, or if it's just a family or one individual, I'll do that as well. So there's no reason you can't get a tour of Oak Ridge.
Can non-citizens take the tour?
Yes, non-citizens, I'm happy to have them. We can take them on. I can take them on the tours. They can even go to the Y12 History Center when it's open. It's still not open, but we're hoping it will be soon. They cannot take the bus tour, the DOE public bus tour, but the museums and the city tour, I can provide for them, including the Y12 History Center when it's open. But bus tours still still required for U.S. citizens for taking the DOE public bus tour.
How about the graphite reactor?
Graphite reactor can only be accessed by the bus tour. So U.S. citizens only. Other questions? All right, I'm gonna go back to sharing the screen. Wait a minute. I got a question. You're gonna have to help me a little with that. How many casualties were there? There were 17 people that died during the Manhattan Project here in Oak Ridge. All 17 of them were construction accidents. Most of them were falls, some of them were electrocutions. I don't know what period, what they're really asking, what you're really asking for there, how many casualties were there? But I made a stab at an answer. If that's not the question you were trying to ask, help me understand your question. Okay, I must have hit it. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. All right, let's go back to sharing the screen until Steve gets here. Let's see. Go back. Share the screen, take off the movie and the sound. Share it. Now, let me get this one a little bigger for you. Now, I hope you can read that. I'll read it. Although East Fork Lodge was not constituted until 1784, if I could get that to go somewhere other than there. The original lodge and Russell's Chapel site have historical significance. The Reverend John M. Lanston of Carroll, Illinois, and a descendant of the Gallagher family. Now, Gallagher, that tells you that we're talking about the K-25 area, the Gallagher plantation, that area down there. Relates that Thomas Gallagher, born in 1764, bought a farm on the East Fork of Poplar Creek in 1798. The Gallaghers had known Andrew Jackson at Jonesboro, Tennessee, before he became Grand Master of the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Tennessee, and before he became President of the United States. Jackson often stopped at the Thomas Gallagher home on his way from Nashville to Knoxville and Greenville. Gallagher's farm proved to have a defective title, and Andrew Jackson was retained to clear the title. Jackson cleared the title, and his fee was one saddle horse. The farm was known thereafter by the Gallaghers as the Andrew Jackson Farm. Thomas Gallagher and his family removed to Illinois in 1833, but the farm on East Fork in later years was better known as the Mrs. J.T. Russell place. She was a descendant of Thomas Gallagher. Now it's back to being called the Gallagher. There's a cemetery down there, the Gallagher Cemetery. And then, of course, we've talked about the African burial ground that's there with just across from K-25. By the way, over at that Gallagher Cemetery, there's also a small cemetery right beside it that was for the house slaves or the Gallaghers. Now, we've jumped around today a lot, haven't we? We've gone now back to 1700s. Talking about history. This is a stove that's in the Oak Ridge History Museum, and it was typical of the coal burning stove of the area. This is a new exhibit in the Oak Ridge History Museum. It's the Ed Westcott exhibit, and they're also going to have the documentary film that I created about Ed. They'll have it running in there as well. But that's on the that's the room that's on the very east end of the Oak Ridge History Museum that is set up to feature Ed Westcott. A lot of his cameras are here in this case, and awards that he received are displayed along that wall. I would love to get a statue of Ed at some point. Maybe we can talk some people into funding murals that'll get his portrait included with some of the other folks. But it'd be great to have a statue of Alvin Weinberg, Ed Westcott, General Grove. I'm jumping around with you now. and I'm not watching the chat. I wish I could see it. All right. I still don't see Steve on here. Okay. Let me go back. I'm jumping again, like I say, jumping around, but now I want to tell you about a current project that's going on. This is a book writing team, and this is David Brill. David Brill has written books about the Appalachian Trail. He lives in Wartburg and or in that area out there. And he is our editor or one of the editors. He's our primary last editor before it goes to publication. And Al Ekebus, retired from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Mary Zur, who's a librarian and a special friend of Lee Redinger here on the right. Lee is the lead of the team. He's retired from University of Tennessee as a physics professor. And we've got Bill Bugg, also retired from UT, and yours truly. The way I got on the team is Lee and I talked for about 2 years about the fact that he would like to hold a class at UT to teach the history of the Manhattan Project. And he would like for me to join him in that endeavor. And I agreed to do that. And we did it in 2018, 2019 kind of time frame. Actually, he taught the course and I just told stories, but I had a really good time working with him. And during the course of that teaching that class, we started talking about a book. And I told him, I said, you've got the material, we need to write this down. And then it evolved to the connection between the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Y-12 plant, K-25, all had connections to the University of Tennessee. And even the UT connection goes all the way back to during the Manhattan Project, and especially immediately after the Manhattan Project, when William Pollard, a professor at UT, actually was responsible for helping to make the Oak Ridge National Laboratory become a national lab. So we are writing that book about the connection between Oak Ridge and the University of Tennessee. It's scheduled to go to the print, UT Press is printing it, scheduled to go to the publisher in, I think, I believe July, but it may be August. We're doing the final edits now. But anyway, this year, and should come out late. Yes, so we'll keep moving on. Any questions you have now, be sure and pop them up. I've now realized I can see them in the chat when they come on. I get a little message up there. All right, I want to show you now some new additions around town. These are signs that have been put up, wayside markers. They're a joint effort between the Manhattan Project National Historical Park and the Explore Oak Ridge, our Convention and Visitors Bureau. This one talks about the schools, and it's located up on Outer Drive, right across or looking toward the Children's Museum, which was the Highland View Elementary School originally, and is now the Children's Museum. And by the way, these flat top houses that you see swinging around there are some of the best examples of that flat top house, although they've all got pitched roofs on them now. Remember, flat tops leak. And, but they can be seen as you're driving along West Outer Drive. This one is for the swimming pool. The swimming hole, it says, a recreational oasis inside the secret city. That one's located near the pool, of course. They're on Robertsville Road. And then Grove Center, a place of welcome, distraction, and escape. You see the theater as it originally looked, sitting there. And notice the house. That house was used for a number of years during the Manhattan Project and I believe even after the Manhattan Project. The International Friendship Bell, this one's down in Bissell Park, very near the Bell. This one's out on the east end of town at the Elza Gate Park there, just as you're leaving town on the right, going out toward Clinton. This one's down at the Melton Lake Park, right near the launch ramp there in the middle of the park. Talks about the river. Jackson Square, this one's up near Jackson Square, and of course talks about the commercial district that was it was located there at Jackson Square. The guest house, this one's located near the Alexander Guest House, the senior living center that is in the building that was the original guest house during the Manhattan Project. Notice what's behind it there. That angle that they shot that picture got the high school. So that's no longer there. Oak Ridge Schools, that's back to that's the same one that I showed you earlier. Looks like I've got it in here twice. And now talk about these markers, the historical markers. That one that was located at the West Gatehouse on the Turnpike has been replaced just recently. That one got stolen and was gone for a number of years. And I got the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and Y12, UT Battelle, and CNS Y12, and UCOR to replace 3 signs, 2 of them that had been damaged and 1 that had been stolen. So this Oak Ridge sign was replaced, and it was replaced by CNS Y12. The Poplar Creek Seminary, which is out on the Turnpike near K25, near the Wheat area, that one had gotten broken, and actually someone stole it before they could pick it up, and we got it made. UCOR paid for that one. And the Oak Ridge, the Playhouse is a new sign that's up at Jackson Square, and the Oak Ridge Playhouse paid for this one. Friel's Bin Cabin, that one is a fairly recent sign. It's out on the road to Clark Center. And it was paid for by private citizens. Some of the Friel's family helped pay for that one. This is the most recent one that's been replaced, the Robertsville community. UT Battelle funded that. I want to point out an error in this one, and I didn't know it, didn't realize it until, pardon me, till Fred Eiler pointed it out to me. There is no way that he could have been given 4,000 acres. Probably 400 would be more like it. But I've got the sign that's up there, and that's the way it was originally written back in the 90s. If I ever replace it, I'll change that. And here's a marker that's out at the George Jones Memorial Baptist Church in the Wheat community out near East Tennessee Technology Park, or K25. And it memorializes the Roberts family, actually the family that Robertsville was named for. And we still have the school building of the Robertsville School that's part of Robertsville Middle School now. It's an auditorium. Was a gym back in the day, I believe. This marker is located at the George Jones Memorial Baptist Church Cemetery. And you know, I just learned something this last week that I don't know if it's a common practice or just an anomaly. But I was told that if a cemetery is located with a church, it's called a graveyard. If it's a family plot or something other than associated with a church, it's called a cemetery. I did not know that, and I still don't know if it's accurate. But at any rate, the reason this one is placed there is because there is a cemetery that was on the K25 site. It's actually right beneath where the old, where the tallest water tower that I've ever seen was located there. But that land has been changed so much and field brought in, and there's no way that you can see any evidence of the cemetery there. But many of these people are buried, or some of them at least, were buried in that cemetery. So it's a good marker that memorializes the Roberts family. I want to tell you about this little tree. This is a Japanese cherry tree that's located at the Chapel on the Hill in the parking lot. That tree was donated to Oak Ridge by the Hiroshima Boys School when they visited years ago and donated that tree. I'd like to get a sign put up recognizing that tree as well. All right, we're going back. I got just a few more things I want to share with you. We've still got a few more minutes. All right. Here is a book that and a story that I'll talk to you about. And I obviously will not be able to pronounce that name as correctly, but I'll give it a try. Mitsu Fuchida, the Japanese pilot who led the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in World War II. The book is entitled The Wounded Tiger, and it's a true story based on his life. He led the attack on Pearl Harbor, and then an American prisoner and a young girl he never met, made a significant impact on him, changed his life. He visited the United States, actually came to Oak Ridge in 1962. And I've written a historically speaking column about his visit to Oak Ridge. And that's a good book, one I would suggest. That's an interesting read because of his friendship with an American prisoner of war. Now, this is the Wheat Community African Burial Ground. And I want to point out to you the things that are left at that marker at the African Burial Ground. I took that sign off after I took that picture. The Emory Road. I wish we could get that section of the bridge repaired. That first road cut and cleared in 1787. The Rock Pillar Bridge was built on there in the early 1900s, about 1906. A young Boy Scout getting his Eagle project did the research, and I helped him to write this, the text for this sign, located very near the Midtown Community Center on the Turnpike. All right. Okay, Steve is still on a customer call, delayed and went very long, so he's not going to join us. Okay, maybe next week. All right, what questions do you have? That's the last of the slides that I had prepared for today. Where physically was the East Fork Farm at the K-25 site? Steve Goodpasture would be the one that can answer that specifically. In talking with him, I know that it was west of the actual K-25 site, but some of it lay on the site itself. In other words, it was in the bend of the river and Poplar Creek, East Fork of Poplar Creek. And the K-25 building was that footprint, I believe, is actually on the Galahar farm. I'm gonna have to start making notes about things I've got to do by next week, but I'll get that one as well. All right, got that. We'll dig that out. There an index or map of all these new markers? Wow, that's a good question. Are they available for public access to Roberts Family Marker and the African Cemetery and other sites like it? Yes, all that I've shown you today is accessible by the public. Now, the Robertsville marker at the Galahar, or at the George Jones Memorial Church, requires you to walk probably 150 yards, not much farther, but you can park at the end of the greenway and walk up there to that marker. The rest of them are on roadsides very easy to locate. And I will suggest to Katie that we need all those markers on a map. I bet she's already thought about that, but I will make that suggestion to her. Are what I call a large number of private cemeteries scattered around Oak Ridge neighborhood. Discussing proof land a lot. Sites would be useful in parents' history. Now there are over 70 cemeteries in the Oak Ridge area, and they are available. They are available on at the Oak Ridge Public Library website. They're all listed. GPS locations are there. All of the cemeteries, all 70 of them, are included, and the location for where they are. So that list of cemeteries is available online at the Oak Ridge, and I'll get the link for that next week. All right, we're out of time. Any other questions before we leave? And I'll work on the bandwidth problem as well as the other things that we've talked about. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you
Thank you.
next week.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Yeah.
very interesting today. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all very much.